There's probably evolutionary reward mechanisms in our brains that give us pleasure when we can criticize others and reassure ourselves that we're the virtuous ones. I mean, like actual neurological incentives to look down on other people. Like, I imagine this is why reality television is so popular. Those programs were probably created specifically to milk whatever evolutionary instinct exists inside us to judge other people. But to say that sentence, judge other people, it sounds negative, doesn't it? You know, judge other people, being judgmental, that sounds like a character flaw, but I don't think so. And in this video, I'm going to explain why being judgmental is a virtue and necessary. I don't want to stop you from being judgmental. I want you to be more judgmental. Of course, if you're going to do that, it's important that you do it in the right way. And in this video, I'm going to explain why being judgmental is a virtue and necessary. I don't want to stop you from being judgmental. I want you to be more judgmental. Of course, if you're going to do that, it's important that you do it in the right way. Let me explain. In a recent Skype consultation, a guy was telling me about his childhood, and it was really rough. His parents treated him horribly. There was lots of abuse. His life had been really hard, and so he sort of developed this life has screwed me, so screw everyone else, screw life sort of attitude. I'm not going to go into details, but suffice to say, there was some pretty unethical behavior that he was engaging in. He was treating the people around him really badly. Now, to me, this is very problematic, and over the course of our conversation, I explained to him my perspective, that in order for him to have a good relationship with himself and to preserve his self-esteem, it was highly necessary, like absolutely essential, that he be able to look back at his childhood and the way that his parents raised him with complete confidence that they were wrong to do so. I wanted him to be able to look at his parents and say, you let me down. You should have done better. I shouldn't have had to suffer abuse at your hands. I deserved better treatment than that. To say that out loud is a powerful statement of his own worth, stating that he deserves better treatment. But the problem is that he can't say that. He can't even think it because, yes, his parents did treat him horribly, but he is also treating other people horribly. He could use the excuse, oh, well, you know, I've had a tough life, but his parents could also use that excuse. And so you see, if having a tough life is a legitimate excuse to treat those people close to you really, really badly, then he has no right to be upset at his parents. He who is without sin may cast the first stone. He had succumbed to the if you can't beat them, join them mentality. But do you see how dangerous the practical application of that psychology is? In essence, by giving up the moral high ground and engaging in the same behaviors that his parents, he is retroactively justifying their behavior towards him and giving up his genuine claims to victimhood. What a tragic missed opportunity. He could have at his parents and said, you should have done better. In judging them to be lacking, he could have boosted his own self-esteem, reassured himself that he is worth more. Same principle applies in romantic relationships and marriages when your partner does something terrible to you. If they lose their temper and start yelling at you, do not yell at them back. If they hit you, do not hit them back. If they cheat on you, do not go and have your own affair. If you do so, then you lose the moral high ground and you retroactively justify their behavior. You can no longer point the finger at them and say, you shouldn't have done that, because you'd be a hypocrite. But if you sink to their level, now I understand that some of the language that I'm using in this video might make some people quite uncomfortable, because here I am talking about criticizing people, pointing the finger at them, judging them, and they still have that old programming operating inside their brains saying, what's all this? Isn't being judgmental a bad thing? I don't understand. I've always been raised to believe that it's a virtue to be non-judgmental. It's absolute nonsense. The only people who push this line that it's virtuous to be non-judgmental are those people who are doing bad things and they don't want to be held accountable for their behavior. Imagine how absurd it would be to raise children with this philosophy of being non-judgmental. Like, the child never cleans up after themselves, and you think, oh well, I don't want to judge their choices. Your child becomes a bully and starts physically attacking other children, and you're like, well, I don't want to judge how they express anger. You see, the idea is completely ludicrous, and any attempt to actually implement being non-judgmental in any practical sense has disastrous results. Now, I understand that some of the language that I'm using in this video might make some people quite uncomfortable, because here I am talking about criticizing people, pointing the finger at them, judging them, and they still have that old programming operating inside their brains saying, what's all this? Isn't being judgmental a bad thing? I don't understand. I've always been raised to believe that it's a virtue to be non-judgmental. It's absolute nonsense. The only people who push this line that it's virtuous to be non-judgmental are those people who are doing bad things and they don't want to be held accountable for their behavior. Imagine how absurd it would be to raise children with this philosophy of being non-judgmental. Like, the child never cleans up after themselves, and you think, oh well, I don't want to judge their choices. Your child becomes a bully and starts physically attacking other children, and you're like, well, I don't want to judge how they express anger. You see, the idea is completely ludicrous, and any attempt to actually implement being non-judgmental in any practical sense has disastrous results. I've made the case many times on this channel already that the reason that there is this increase in negative female behavior is because of third wave feminism making everybody terrified to criticize or judge women for any reason, lest they be labeled as sexist. Surprise, surprise, when we stop judging negative behaviors, we see an increase in them. Toxic femininity is on the rise because women are able to get away with it. That's entirely predictable. So, as a man in your self-growth journey, do not aim to be non-judgmental. That is not a virtue. You must be extremely judgmental. But, and this is the important part, in order to be good at judging people, and by good I mean effective and authoritative, you cannot be a hypocrite. In your relationship and in your family, your wife and children are going to be looking to you to be a role model. Who act and lead in this way genuinely inspire people around them to become better versions of themselves. In their relationships, in their families, even in their social circles and in the workplace. You can probably think of your own experiences, like think of all of the bosses that you've worked for, and you'll realize that those that got the best work out of you, those that you liked and respected the most, were those who led by example, who couldn't just talk the talk, but who actually walked the walk. And this is not a bad thing. This is not a sacrifice that you need to make. This is a reward that you should actively seek. It is a wonderful feeling knowing that your words match your actions. You can feel that your words carry a weight. It's like the strength of your well-earned reputation is expressed in every single word that you utter. When everybody around you knows that were you in that person's position, you would have done the right thing, then your words mean something. To have your opinions carry weight, to have people listen respectfully when you speak, that is one of the natural rewards. But if you have a history of being lazy and selfish yourself, then you can't go around judging people, because who are you to cast judgment? You're a hypocrite. Your words are hollow and meaningless, and they're certainly not going to inspire any respect, because nobody is going to respect your judgment. You know those families where the teenage kids are rebelling and acting horribly, and everybody always provides sympathy for the parents, like, oh, I don't know what you did to deserve kids like that. Like, where did this behavior, where did this attitude come from? Everybody always looks down on the children and sympathizes with the parents. But I always think, well, how are those parents behaving? Maybe there's a good reason why those kids don't respect their father. Maybe he's a massive hypocrite. It would be psychological suicide. It would mean to disregard their own judgment, to completely ignore and deny reality. Let's talk about women and how important it is for you to be judgmental in your romantic relationships. I've spoken before about how rare genuinely high quality women are, and that the few that do exist are most likely already inside relationships. But if you're expecting your female partner to meet those standards so that she can become a high quality woman, do you see that you need to meet those standards yourself? You cannot expect from someone else to live up to standards that you yourself fail to meet. You need to have standards, even strict, high standards for how your partner needs to behave. It's just that you need to meet those standards yourself as well. It's actually in meeting your own standards that gives you the confidence necessary to be able to demand that from your partner. What you're declaring to the world is, I have met these standards. I am worthy. I'm entitled to it because I'm doing so well, and so I expect the best from my partner also. So forget all of this non-judgmental nonsense. It's a powerful declaration of your own self-worth. It's how you assert your quality into the world. It's you declaring what standards you live by and what standards you expect others who want to associate with you also should live by. And the key to unlocking all of this, just don't be a hypocrite.